If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars. Milky Way. They said the civilization was extinct, burned out, erased, misfiled into footnotes and dust. So when the professor dimmed the lights and said, "What you're about to see no longer exists," no one expected the image that followed. Least of all Dr. Mara Ellison, because the image on the Galactic Lecture Hall's main display was her. Not her face exactly, but her graduation photo. Same scar near the eyebrow. Same defiant tilt of the chin. Same human-made fabric woven into the ceremonial collar. The room murmured. Alien students shifted in their bioluminescent seats. Mandibles clicked. Feathers rustled. Translation fields hummed. Mara stood up before she realized she was moving. "Professor," she said carefully, pulse pounding in her ears, "why are you showing my graduation photo during a lecture on a lost civilization?" Silence fell like vacuum. Professor Cothrex, 3 meters tall, eyes like liquid obsidian, turned slowly. Confusion rippled across his neural frill. "That image," he replied, "is over 12,000 cycles old." A laugh escaped someone in the back. A mistake, obviously. A data overlap. Except the professor didn't laugh. He zoomed the image in. The date stamp appeared, verified by 3 independent archival nodes. Pre-FTL era. Long before humans were supposed to leave their cradle. Long before the galaxy ever noticed them. Mara's mouth went dry, because she remembered that photo. The day she graduated from the Terran Interstellar Academy. The day she swore an oath to protect humanity's place among the stars. "That's impossible," she whispered. Cothrex tilted his head. "That is the common reaction." The lecture continued without her consent. Holograms replaced the image, cities carved into asteroids, vast ring habitats orbiting dead stars, fleets shaped for endurance rather than bow. This civilization, Cothrex intoned, was known as the Wardens of Continuance. They appeared suddenly, advanced rapidly, and vanished without a trace. The room leaned in. "They believed in something most species find illogical," he continued. "They believed survival was a moral obligation." Mara felt a chill crawl up her spine. That phrase. She'd heard it before. From her grandmother. From academy oaths. From human war memorials etched into steel and bone. Survival wasn't instinct. It was duty. Cothrex turned back to the class. "We know little of their biology. Their language is partially decoded. But their imagery is consistent." The screen flickered again. Another image appeared. Another human face. Another uniform. And then another. 10 images. All human. All unmistakable. Mara's voice shook as she spoke again. "Professor, what species were the Wardens?" Cothrex's gaze locked onto her. And for the first time, there was something like fear in his eyes. "That," he said, "is the question that ended 3 research councils." The lecture hall didn't feel like a classroom anymore. It felt like a courtroom. Every eye, compound, crystalline, or otherwise, was on Mara as Cothrex raised a slender limb and froze the hologram mid-rotation. "The Wardens," he said slowly, "were never biologically classified." A ripple of confusion passed through the students. "That is not because they were unknown," Cothrex continued. "It is because every attempt to classify them failed." Mara swallowed. The images shifted again, human figures standing beside aliens of wildly different shapes. Some smiling, some wounded, some dead, all human. "These records span tens of thousands of cycles," Cothrex said. "Different sectors, different eras. And yet," he highlighted a symbol etched into armor plates and banners across the images. A simple mark. A circle, broken at the top. Mara's heart skipped. She wore that symbol every day. It was stitched into the inside of her jacket, invisible unless you knew where to look. "The continuance sigil," Cothrex said. "The Wardens believed civilizations rise and fall. That entropy is inevitable. But they rejected one idea. The lights dimmed further. That anyone should fall alone." A murmur rolled through the hall. Mara felt her legs weaken and sat back down, fingers gripping the desk. This wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It was impossible. "Professor," another student clicked nervously, "are you suggesting the Wardens were in multiple species?" Cothrex shook his head. "No, the opposite." He changed the projection. Now it showed timelines. Civilizations rising, then collapsing. Wars, extinctions, supernovae, plagues. And every time a civilization approached its end, humans appeared, sometimes as diplomats, Sometimes as engineers. Sometimes as soldiers. Always too late to save everything. But always early enough to save someone. The wardens never conquered, Kothrex said. They arrived when hope was statistically irrational. They spent resources where returns were negligible. They fought wars that could not be won. Mara's breathing turned shallow. That wasn't ancient history. That was human doctrine. That's just humanity, she whispered. Kothrex's head snapped toward her. Yes, he said quietly. That is the problem. He magnified one final image. A human standing alone before a collapsing stargate. Radiation tearing armor apart. One hand raised in farewell. The translation overlay activated automatically. The last recorded warden message. We endure so others may begin again. Mara felt tears burn her eyes. That's not a lost civilization, she said. That's a legacy. Kothrex deactivated the display. And yet, he replied, no species remembers meeting you. The bell signaling the end of the lecture rang, shrill and meaningless. As students filed out in stunned silence, Kothrex leaned closer to Mara. You were not invited to this lecture by accident, he said. And what comes next is not academic. Mara didn't leave with the others. She couldn't. The lecture hall emptied in waves of whispers and stunned silence. But she remained seated, heart hammering, mind racing through impossible timelines and buried instincts she didn't know she had. Kothrex sealed the doors. The sound echoed like a verdict. You understand now why this lecture is restricted, he said, lowering his voice. And why you were the only human permitted entry. Mara stood slowly. Permitted? She repeated. You make it sound like this was planned. Kothrex didn't deny it. He activated a privacy field. The air thickened, sound dampening to a hush so complete it felt artificial. For centuries, he said, the galactic councils have debated a contradiction. Humanity is young, loud, reckless, statistically insignificant. He stepped closer. And yet, whenever extinction approaches, humans appear in the historical record like a recurring variable. Mara folded her arms, grounding herself. History's messy. Data gets misfiled. Kothrex's eyes hardened. These archives predate human star flight by millennia. He brought up another projection, this one different. Not images. Orders. Evacuation manifests. Terraforming schematics. Cultural archives compressed and launched into deep space. All signed with the same broken circle sigil. These were not heroic last stands, Kothrex said. They were preparations. Mara's chest tightened. For what? She asked. For disappearance. The word hit harder than any accusation. The wardens did not die, Kothrex continued. They withdrew. Systematically. Completely. They erased themselves from galactic memory while ensuring others survived. Mara shook her head. Why would anyone do that? Kothrex studied her carefully. Because memory creates dependence. And dependence weakens growth. Something stirred inside her. A familiar echo. A phrase whispered during classified briefings she was never supposed to remember. Never let them rely on us. Kothrex changed the projection again. A star map appeared. One region was highlighted. Empty. Dark. Avoided. The Warden Exodus vector, he said. No probes return. No signals escape. Mara's pulse spiked. You think humans went there? Kothrex answered with a question of his own. Dr. Ellison, do you know why your graduation photo appears in a 12,000-cycle-old archive? Her throat tightened. Because, she said slowly, someone put it there. Kothrex inclined his head. Or, he corrected, because it has always been there. The privacy field flickered. A warning tone sounded. External access request. Authorized. Continuance protocol. Mara's blood ran cold. She knew that phrase. It didn't exist in public records. It existed only in humanity's deepest black vaults. Kothrex looked at her, not as a professor now, but as a witness. They are calling for you, he said. And history, Mara whispered, isn't done with us. The summons didn't come with words. It came with a feeling. A pressure behind Mara's eyes, like gravity increasing just enough to notice. The privacy field collapsed as every display in the hall went dark, then lit up with the same symbol. The broken circle. Kothrex stepped back instinctively. That interface shouldn't exist anymore, he muttered. Mara didn't answer. Her pulse had slowed. Not from calm. From recognition. The symbol pulsed once, then unfolded into layered data streams. Ancient encryption stacked on modern Terran protocols. Human. Undeniably human. A voice emerged. Not synthesized. Not alien. Human. Tired. Familiar in a way that hurt. Designation verified. Continuance anchor located. Mara's breath caught. Dr. Mara Ellison. The voice continued. By oath, by blood, and by memory you are cleared for disclosure. Kothrex stared at her. You never told me your species used memory lock phrasing. We don't, Mara whispered. Not officially. The displays shifted. Now they showed Earth. Not the Earth of today, but a version long gone. Cities half-built. Oceans cleaner. Skies crowded with orbital scaffolds. A timestamp scrolled beneath it. T-minus 47 years to first contact. That's impossible, Mara said. First contact already happened. The voice corrected her gently. First contact has happened before. Her knees weakened. The voice continued. Humanity has reached the stars 7 times. Each time, you encountered civilizations approaching terminal decline. Each time, you intervened. Images flooded the room. Human fleets evacuating worlds. Human engineers stabilizing failing suns. Human soldiers holding lines they couldn't survive. Each time, the voice said, your presence altered galactic development beyond acceptable thresholds. Kothrex's mandibles clicked in horror. You reset yourselves, he realized. Yes, the voice replied. We withdrew. We erased our influence. We returned to our cradle with curated amnesia. Mara felt sick. You let us forget, she said. You let me forget. Until now, the voice answered. The projection zoomed in on her graduation photo again. That image is a marker, the voice said. A temporal anchor to identify continuance candidates across resets. Mara clenched her fists. Candidates for what? The room went silent. Then the voice spoke the words that made Kothrex recoil. For remembrance. Alarms blared outside the hall. Security fields spiked across the campus. Kothrex looked at Mara urgently. The council will not allow this knowledge to spread. Mara straightened, something ancient and heavy settling onto her shoulders. They never do, she said. The voice returned, quieter now. Dr. Ellison, the cycle is destabilizing. Humanity has been detected. Mara looked up at the symbol. Detected by who? The symbol fractured. And behind it, something else looked back. The thing behind the symbol wasn't a face. It was an absence. A region where data collapsed inward, where projections refused to render, like the universe itself declining to describe it. Kothrex staggered back. That's not a known intelligence. No, Mara said softly. It never is. The voice returned, strained now. Designation, the quiet convergence. Emergent phenomenon. Pattern-based extinction. Images snapped into place. Civilizations didn't fall to war or plague. They optimized themselves into silence. Perfect efficiency. Zero waste. Zero conflict. Zero growth. Stars dimmed. Signals faded. Cultures froze into static equilibrium. They don't kill, Mara realized. They finish. Kothrex's frill darkened. Entropy made intelligent. The voice continued. Previous cycles delayed convergence by intervention. This cycle has accelerated beyond safe parameters. Mara's mind raced. Because we didn't intervene early enough. Correct. The displays showed timelines branching. Every branch, without humanity, collapsed faster. Kothrex turned to her. So the wardens weren't saviors. Mara shook her head. We were friction. She stepped closer to the projection. We introduce inefficiency, emotion, bad decisions, hope. The quiet convergence recoiled from unpredictability, from civilizations that refused to stabilize. That's why we disappear, Kothrex said. So the galaxy doesn't adapt to you. Mara nodded. And why we're remembered as a myth. The voice cut in sharply. Council fleets are mobilizing. Probability of containment action, 87%. Containment, Kothrex repeated bitterly. They'll erase this entire sector. Mara felt the weight of 7 forgotten lifetimes pressing down on her. How long? She asked. Until convergence reaches critical mass. A pause. 16 standard days. 16 days to stop something older than memory. Kothrex laughed once, sharp and hopeless. You can't fight an absence. Mara met his gaze. No, she said. But we can annoy it. The voice hesitated. That strategy historically correlates with survival. Mara smiled faintly. Wake the others, she said. Kothrex froze. Others? The ones like me, Mara replied. The markers. The candidates. The broken circle split into dozens of points across the star map. Human. All of them. Scattered across the galaxy. As soldiers. Medics. Engineers. Teachers. Kothrex whispered. You planted yourselves everywhere. Mara's smile faded. We always do. A new alert flashed. Council override. Extermination authorization pending. The lecture hall shook as orbital weapons powered up. Mara turned toward the doors. Then we're running out of time. They didn't leave through the doors. They left through history. The voice, continuance itself, opened a corridor in space-time so subtle it felt like stepping between thoughts. One moment, the lecture hall trembled under distant orbital fire control systems. The next, Mara stood in a chamber that didn't exist on any map. No walls. No floor. Just layers of memory suspended like stars. This is a continuance vault, the voice said. One of many. Most are empty. Kothrex turned slowly, awe overriding fear. You hid your past inside yourselves. Mara touched her temple. Fragments surfaced. Briefings she never remembered receiving. Languages she shouldn't know. Battlefields that felt like déjà vu. How many times? She asked. The answer came without hesitation. 7 full cycles. This is the 8th. Kothrex stiffened. And how many times did you win? A pause. We delayed extinction every time. Not stopped. Delayed. The vault shifted, revealing projections of previous endings. Galaxies dimming. Cultures stabilizing into sterile perfection. But this time, the voice said, the quiet convergence adapted. Mara felt a chill. Adapted how? It learned patience. It is no longer repelled by intervention. It is studying you. The vault flared, showing human improvisation, rebellion, irrational sacrifice. Patterns formed. They're learning chaos, Kothrex whispered. Yes, the voice replied. And if they succeed, unpredictability will be neutralized. Mara clenched her jaw. So we changed the rules. The vault responded, data streams accelerating. Explain. We stop hiding, Mara said. We stop resetting. We let the galaxy remember us. Kothrex recoiled. That would destabilize every political structure. Good, Mara cut in. Stability is the convergence's food. The voice hesitated longer this time. Historical outcome probability, catastrophic. Mara met the swirling data. Humanity has never survived by choosing safe odds. Silence. Then the vault brightened. Proposal accepted, the voice said quietly. Activating remembrance cascade. Across the galaxy, something stirred. Hidden archives unlocked. Suppressed myths resurfaced. Old monuments reactivated. Species that thought humans were newcomers suddenly remembered fighting beside them. The Council's weapons stalled, crews disoriented by memories that weren't supposed to exist. Kothrex gasped as images flooded his mind. We knew you. We forgot you. Mara felt the echo ripple through her bones. The broken circle began to close. A final alert appeared. Quiet convergence response detected. It was reacting, and it was angry. Mara squared her shoulders. Good, she said. That means it noticed. The galaxy screamed, not with sound, but with contradiction. Star maps rewrote themselves in real time. Borders blurred. History buckled under the weight of memories slamming back into place. Civilizations remembered debts they never repaid. Alliances they never honored. Wars they thought they'd survived alone. And at the center of it all, humans. Mara felt it happen inside her too. 7 lifetimes aligned. 7 deaths. 7 retreats. 7 promises never to let the galaxy become dependent on them again. Kothrex dropped to one knee, overwhelmed. This is madness, he said. The Council is fracturing. Entire species are demanding answers. That's the point, Mara replied. Confusion creates motion. The vault pulsed violently. The voice cut in, strained. Quiet convergence has altered strategy. It is no longer suppressing variability. A new projection appeared. Stars weren't dimming anymore. They were going dark suddenly, snuffed out in clusters. It's accelerating collapse, Kothrex realized. Forcing an end before adaptation finishes. Mara's hands trembled. How long now? 36 hours until irreversible cascade. The room seemed to shrink. Kothrex looked up at her, eyes wide. You can't evacuate a galaxy in 36 hours. No, Mara said. But we can teach it to fight. The vault responded, opening channels across countless worlds. Human markers activated everywhere. Engineers remembered impossible designs. Medics recalled treatments that broke medical ethics. Soldiers woke up knowing wars they hadn't lived yet. Across the stars, humanity stood up all at once. Kothrex watched feeds pour in. You're not commanding them. Mara shook her head. We never do. A transmission broke through, raw, unfiltered. A human voice, laughing through static. Hey, it said. Anyone else suddenly remember dying for strangers? Another followed. Yeah, someone replied. Would do it again. The quiet convergence reacted violently. Reality warped near its influence zones, probability collapsing, causality tightening. It's trying to enforce determinism, the voice warned. Locking outcomes. Mara closed her eyes. Then we give it the one thing it can't predict. She opened them again. Choice. She keyed a final protocol. Continuance final option, release. Kothrex froze. What does that do? Mara looked at him, really looked. It makes us permanent. The vault began to crack. Humanity's greatest secret, exposed forever. The quiet convergence surged toward them. And for the first time, it hesitated. The hesitation lasted less than a second. But in a universe governed by probabilities, a single second was an eternity. The quiet convergence recoiled, not in fear, but in recalculation. Entire probability trees collapsed and reformed as it attempted to model a future where humans were no longer a hidden variable. It's failing to converge, the voice said, something close to awe creeping in. Permanent unpredictability detected. Around Mara, the vault fractured completely, dissolving into raw space threaded with data, no longer a shelter, but a broadcast. Every species could see it now. Humans standing at the center of recorded extinction events. Not as rulers, not as gods, as witnesses who refused to leave. Kothrex struggled to his feet, watching council channels implode as representatives argued, pleaded, panicked. You've turned yourselves into a constant, he said. The galaxy will never forget you again. Mara nodded. That's the risk. A new projection surged forward, quiet convergence zones colliding with worlds that were no longer passive. Civilizations fought back, not with perfect strategies, with reckless ones. A species rerouted its entire energy grid just to keep a single child habitat alive. Another sabotaged its own optimization networks, reintroducing inefficiency on purpose. Hope spiked. Chaos spread. The quiet convergence buckled. It's losing coherence, the voice reported. It cannot stabilize against distributed choice. Mara felt a strange warmth in her chest. This is what we were made for, she said. Not to save everyone, just to remind them they can choose. But victory came with a cost. Warning glyphs flared crimson. Continuance core destabilizing. Kothrex turned sharply. What does that mean? Mara already knew. The system that lets us reset, she said quietly. The one that lets us disappear. The voice spoke, softer now. Permanent existence requires permanent consequence. Mara exhaled. No more erasure, she said. No more clean slates. The quiet convergence surged one final time. Desperate, collapsing inward on itself. Stars flared back to life as its influence unraveled. Across the galaxy, signals returned. Cultures breathed again. Silence broke. Kothrex stared at Mara. You've won. She shook her head. No, she said. We've stayed. The broken circle closed completely. And somewhere deep in the fabric of reality, the cycle ended. But something else began. The galaxy didn't celebrate. That was the first sign this time was different. There were no unified cheers, no grand declarations of victory. Instead, there was something far more dangerous. Reflection. World after world went quiet. Not from extinction, but from thought. Species reviewed their histories and saw the same pattern repeated again and again. Humans arriving when numbers said they shouldn't matter. Humans leaving before gratitude could turn into reliance. Kothrex watched the feeds in silence. They're asking the same question everywhere. Mara already knew the question. Why did you never stay? A transmission cut through the noise. Not a council signal. Civilian bandwidth. Unfiltered. A small avian species spokesperson appeared, feathers trembling. We remember you now, she said. You held our evacuation corridor open while our sun collapsed. We built statues to heroes we couldn't name. Another feed followed. An insectoid elder bowed deeply. You taught us how to rebuild after cultural collapse. Then you vanished. We thought it was a myth. The messages kept coming. Not praise. Accountability. Mara felt the weight settle fully now. This was the part resets were designed to avoid. You're exposed, Kothrex said quietly. Politically, morally, historically. Yes, Mara replied. And so is everyone else. The voice, continuance, spoke again, weaker but stable. Quiet convergence has dissolved into background entropy. Threat neutralized. Kothrex let out a breath. So it's over. Mara didn't answer immediately. She watched a new council emergency session begin. Species arguing not about weapons, but responsibility. About mutual aid. About who would answer the next extinction call. No, she said at last. It's transferred. Kothrex frowned. Transferred. The burden, Mara said. Survival as a moral obligation shouldn't belong to one species. She turned toward the galactic map, now alive with independent cooperation networks forming spontaneously. For the first time, she continued, we're not the only ones standing in the dark. The voice added one final update. Continuance protocols decommissioned. Humanity classified as persistent participant. No more wardens in the shadows. Just people. Mara closed her eyes, feeling 7 lifetimes finally settle into one. Let them remember us, she said. Let them argue with us. Kothrex managed a faint smile. The galaxy will never be the same. Mara opened her eyes. That's the point. But somewhere, far beyond the mapped stars, a faint anomaly flickered. Unlabeled. Watching. The anomaly didn't move. It didn't signal. It didn't act. And that was what terrified Mara the most. Because she recognized the pattern. Continuance, she said quietly. Tell me I'm wrong. The voice hesitated, something it had never done before. Analysis incomplete, it admitted. Anomaly does not match quiet convergence signatures. Kothrex stared at the distant flicker. Then what is it? Mara exhaled slowly. Us, she said. Or what comes after us? The projection sharpened. Not a threat. A reflection. A future probability space where civilizations didn't wait for extinction to learn compassion. Where intervention wasn't secret. Where survival wasn't outsourced. Humanity's influence, no longer hidden, rippling forward. We changed the baseline, Mara said. That always creates echoes. The anomaly stabilized, then dispersed, folding harmlessly into the galactic background. Continuance's final processes wound down. All reset mechanisms permanently offline, the voice said. This is the last cycle. Mara felt a strange mix of fear and relief. No rewinds. No forgetting. Just consequences. Kothrex straightened, scholar again at last. So what happens to you now? Mara smiled, small, human. I go back to teaching, she said. Someone has to explain why a graduation photo ended up in a 12,000-year-old lecture. Kothrex let out a quiet laugh. Across the galaxy, classrooms lit up. Archives updated. Children of a dozen species learned a new truth. That humanity wasn't ancient gods. Just stubborn participants who refused to leave the room when things got hard. Mara looked once more at the broken circle, now whole. Survival isn't destiny, she said. It's a choice. And this time, everyone remembered.